Hey guys, Aaron Stinner here. We're here in the shop today. Another busy day, as you can see, and we're here to talk about metal. The number one questions that we get in emails is, what materials do you guys build out of and what are the differences? And for Stinner, we build out of two main materials. We build in steel and titanium, and each of those materials have their own ride characteristics and feelings, and they each have their own design principles, and how we choose those materials depends on the result that we want. So when I started the company back in 2010, we started building bikes out of steel and steel only. I actually started only brazing steel frames. I quickly learned that that was a hard and laborious way to make bikes, so switched to TIG welding, which is a much more efficient way to make bikes. Most of the bikes that we build out of with steel are going to be a butted chromoly style tube. We've used different steel suppliers, we've used different steel types throughout the years and how we build bikes, but today we build most of our bikes out of Columbus tubing or straight gauge 4130, like aircraft grade chromoly. And we really use the tubes kind of where we need to use them to deliver a result that we want. So back in the day, you would order a bike and it would be based out of like Reynolds 853 or whatever the tube set was, and you would only have the bike primarily built out of that tube set and that tube set only. And that's not really how we build bikes today. We don't choose to build bikes that way. We kind of like being able to go to the pantry and select the parts and pieces that we want to get the result that we want. So when people ask us like, oh, do you use Columbus Zona and Columbus Zona only? We don't only use Columbus Zona. That may be for like our select models. Most of our select models use a Columbus Zona tube, but there's also a mix of some other things in there. And then also depending on sizes, we may mix a few small ingredients in there that don't really have an overall benefit to like the end rider as far as like a brand name goes. We understand that some people have a connection to different brands and different styles of tubing, and they kind of want to be able to connect the dots in that way. So hopefully through this video, I can kind of give you a better idea on like why we choose what we choose. So we use Columbus Zona primarily in our select models. We use those for two reasons. One, it's a great tube. The material and the tensile strength of the material is very good. Columbus does have higher grade material from that Columbus Zona, like a Life tube or a Spirit tube. Usually what you're getting there is a thinner wall tube, and a lighter tube and a higher tensile strength. So it's going to deliver a different ride quality than say the Zona tube. The Zona tube, for what it is a great middle of the road tube. So it's providing great value for what it is. And that's why we chose it for our select model. It's priced right so that we can build a bike that we feel confident in you riding, and it's designed in a way that it's going to deliver a really good riding experience at the same time. Our custom models, we do use Spirit and Life tubing in, and we cocktail those recipes even more on our custom side in order to deliver the right ride for you as a rider. But for our select series, we primarily focus on Columbus Zona. So what a lot of people ask us is like, well, how do the bikes ride? How do the select bikes ride? And it's really hard to describe that into words, especially most of the mass market stuff or what people are coming off of is a carbon fiber bike. I love the ride of a steel bike. It has a very lively feel to it. It's much smoother than carbon. We choose to design our bikes to be comfortable yet snappy at the same time. So I grew up with a racing background, so I still like a bike that has a lot of get up and go. And so we try to build the bike with that in mind. So it still has some stiffness to it where it needs to be, but it's still delivering that like classic steel ride quality at the same time. So meant for long miles, meant to be comfortable over long miles, but if you wanted to go to your local gravel race and go be competitive, you could. If you wanted to dive into the fourth corner on a criterium race and sprint all out, you could still do that as well. We've had several Cat 1 riders race on our steel bikes and get great results. So that's kind of the best way to describe it. So lively, but smooth at the same time. So that's kind of the best way to describe our steel stuff. So then the next question that we get a lot of is like, well, what's the difference between steel and titanium? Those are the two big offerings that we offer. And then Thai also is broken down into two more categories, straight gauge and butted. We'll address straight gauge first because straight gauge is what we build all of our Podium bikes out of. So we use like a 325 aircraft grade titanium. It's a grade 9, and we try to source the best material that we can in that grade. Titanium is made in more abundance than steel, like specifically like Columbus is a name brand tube. You're not gonna see that with titanium. Titanium, there are a few name brands like Haynes and Sandvik. Those are the two prominent ones in the US, but there are mills making titanium all over the world. Most of the milling is happening in specific locations where titanium is actually being mined, or is being mined in way more mines across the world than titanium. Most of the titanium mines are going to reside in China, Russia, and South Africa. There is a mine in Canada as well, so you'll see some stuff come out of Canada. There's a little bit of mining that's done in the US, but most of your largest stuff is going to be coming out of Russia and China. The closer you can source the material to the mine, the higher quality you're going to get. So we try to source the highest grade that we can. We want a tube that comes out straight, that has consistent wall thickness through it, that when it is being made, there's no porosity to it. The material is being treated in the correct way, so it's not being exposed to a lot of oxygen. There's just certain characteristics that you want to find when you're looking for a titanium supplier, and we're always trying to search for the best quality tubing manufacturer that we can. So it's a grade 9 325 titanium tube. That's what we use across the board on our Podium models. Now the next thing with titanium and where you can play around with it a little bit more is on, which you can as well with steel, but even plays into it a little bit more on the Thai side, is tubing diameter. We use pretty much primarily a 0.9 mil wall straight gauge titanium throughout our series, like for our Podium lineup, due to the nature of like trying to deliver a value-oriented product that's made in titanium. We have to be a little selective on how wild we get, again, with like going to the pantry, grabbing those ingredients and making something for you. We need to keep it simple. We need to design something that works for everyone, so it's a little bit more of a blanketed item in that it's covering everybody from tall to small. So we use a 0.9 mil wall tube, down tube, top tube, seat tube, chain stays, seat stays, all 0.9, and those are all varying in diameter. So the diameter of the tube then is what we're using to play with ride quality. And we use different tubing diameters in different locations to tune that ride. So that's kind of the nitty gritty on diameters and wall thicknesses, the type of tubing that we use. There are engineers that are smarter than I am that will probably have a lot of feedback on why certain things play into a different way. And I am not a classically trained material scientist, so I am a frame builder, and this is coming from years of riding and years of welding and building different types of bikes and riding different types of bikes and talking to different frame builders and what works for them and what hasn't worked for others. And so that's how we've gotten to where we've gotten with the Podium series today. So the next big question is, how does it ride? And to explain titanium in basic terms is you're getting a couple things that you're getting with titanium that you don't get with steel. One, the material is lighter. The second one is just corrosion resistance. So you don't have to deal with rust. You don't have to deal with exposing your bikes to different elements. You can ride it in the rain. You could ride it in the sand. You could put it in the ocean and it'll still be there 20 years from now. So it has that resiliency and those characteristics. So it's also smoother than steel. Steel is already smoother than carbon is. Titanium takes it to that next level. It's almost like custom springs on your car, right? It's gonna like smooth out that ride, and you will notice if you take the same rider on two different bikes and they ride a steel bike and a titanium bike, their body is gonna experience less road vibrations on the titanium bike than it is on the steel bike. So that's kind of the best way to describe the feeling of titanium. Now, we designed the bike to try to add the stiffness in the right areas and flexiness in other areas. On the Podium models, we're a little limited on where we can do that because we are trying to build a bike that's a one-size-fits-all. So we're trying to accommodate everyone's riding style. That's kind of titanium in a nutshell, especially on the Podium series. Now, you can go from the Podium series, which is our straight gauge titanium, up into our custom series where we do offer budded titanium. And essentially what that's doing is taking the tubes that we already source and we reduce the outside diameter of those tubes to a thinner wall in the middle. And we tune that wall thickness depending on the rider, the size, their height, all of those things. So then you're really getting a custom meal at that standpoint, right? Like we're reaching in and we're grabbing all the ingredients that we can grab to make you a meal designed specifically for you. And so that's what you're gonna get in custom, and that's what budding allows us to do. It allows us to drop weight, it allows us to tune ride, it allows us to do all these other things that with a straight gauge tube, really the way that we're changing things up is mostly on diameter and maybe some wall thickness stuff depending on the bike that we're designing. But when it comes to the Podium series, it's mostly gonna be based around diameter, where then when you step up into the custom range, you're gonna get the budding and diameter and how much of that material that we're removing. So for example, we have a bike that's going through fabrication today that's built for a gentleman that's 6'8" and 260 pounds. And that bike is gonna be a lot different than the bike that we're gonna build for somebody who's 5'4" and 120 pounds. So custom allows us to do that. The second question that we get a lot asked on is like, when would I choose custom over, one of your stock bikes? And I think it does have a lot to do with actually the material choice and why we chose the materials that we did. Most people are going to get a really good ride experience on our stock bikes because they're so highly designed to be a great riding bike at the price point that they're at. If you fall in what I call the tall and small category, where you're really tall and heavier, or if you're really small and you're lighter, that's where custom really can add a lot of benefit. Otherwise, for most people that fall in the main bell curve of height and weight, if you're going custom, you're usually just trying to tune that ride towards something that you want, which we can help with as well. But that's where that custom experience is going to be more of a tuning effort than it is going to be, getting your bars in the right position or like really going out and like getting larger diameter tubes or really customizing things. That's really more just if you're in that spectrum and you have the budget, it's awesome, and we love doing those projects. But that's going to be more talking about material and tuning things specifically to what you're looking for out of ride characteristics, less than custom where we're trying to get stack and reach to the right position. So lots to consider, lots to think about when you're thinking about all the material. And that's why when we get these emails, it's really hard for us to put into one sentence like, yeah, this is the difference between the two materials and these are the ride characteristics. Like we can try to nail that down in 4 sentences, but that's really difficult to do. And you're probably not getting the honest answer at the end of the day. So hopefully these questions kind of help clear things up, why we design the way that we do, why we choose the materials that we do. And maybe in another video, if you guys want, which we're happy to dive into, we can kind of explain a little bit more closely on like specific tubing diameters and wall thicknesses and those things when we're considering design. But I think for the sake of like you guys understanding the difference between our select models, our Podium models, and our custom models, hopefully this kind of give you a good idea of what to expect and what to look for. I highly encourage anybody who hasn't experienced riding a metal bike to find one of our local dealers or find any dealer that sells a metal bike and just get on it and ride it. Ride it next to a carbon bike. You will be able to tell really quickly the difference between those two ride characteristics. It's a lot we could try to describe with adjectives all day long, but I think to get the real experience of it, you got to get on the bike and ride it. We're trying to get more demos available for clients to ride. That takes time. Our shops, if you have a local shop and if they are a Stinner dealer, encourage them to get a demo fleet. We work with our dealers to get demos to them so that you guys can ride these bikes and experience them. But yeah, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop them down below. We're happy to answer any questions that you guys have. And if you guys have anything that you'd rather see in another video series that I didn't cover here, Again, this is kind of like first stab at this. So hopefully we've gotten some of that information out there and this gives you guys something to spin on and think about. But yeah, drop us a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you guys see the next video that comes out. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys out on the road.